Hey, welcome back to another episode of Keep Standing. Grateful to have you sharing with us on today. Listen, I need you to do me a big favor, as always. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this content, especially if it's being a benefit to you. I know it'll be a blessing to others. I'm grateful again to have you back. I get to run it back around the block one more time with one of my dear friends, a brother indeed from Morehouse. We shared time together there. And then also, we went to Princeton together, Princeton Theological Seminary. He's the founder of Phase 2 Consulting. He helps to advise and consult with Fortune 500 company leaders, but also nonprofits and faith leaders. He's also the recent author of The Power to Persist. You got to make sure you go pick that up quickly as well. And also, he's got a podcast also entitled The Power to Persist. You need to make sure you go and listen to that too. I'm grateful today to have my brother, again, proud to be from the south side of Chicago.
Yes.
Man, welcome back, Lamell.
Thanks for having me.
Again, just grateful for you. I said earlier that I've always watched the work that you do. And when you talk about this book, it just makes so much sense because, again, you're grounded in purpose. And that's been this kind of journey to share with others how important that is. But as leaders, we also know that purpose can also come out of difficulty.
Yes.
And a lot of times we think, I got to find out where is it where everything goes right. That's not it.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes discovering and developing happens in the hard places. What was one of those early setbacks for you that kind of really shifted things for you, and how did it kind of shape the work you're doing now?
I grew up in a challenging environment on the South Side. And I'd like to think that it shaped me, not for the bad, but for the good. I saw early on that you had a choice in life. You really could go this way or you go that way. Around me, drugs, gang activity, but I was always exposed to something different, primarily by being embedded in my church, like Vacation Bible School, Sunday school, tutoring. I learned how to ski on the South Side of Chicago, like through my church, and that helped create an alternative reality than the one that I was in the middle of. Right. I had an escape. I was the kid who was focused on current events.
Yeah.
Right. I could tell you who the mayor was, the governor was, my city council person, the president's name, the vice president, all since I was a kid. When I was a kid, those old plastic, like cowboy Indian type, and they're shaped like this, and nothing you could do with them. I never pretended like they were killing each other, Dr. Sloan. I always chose one to be the president of the United States. This is since I was a kid. I chose one to be the president of the United States, and I use books like this, and the books were the cars, and I put the men on top of the cars, and one was the president of the United States, and the rest were Secret Service agents. And I used every piece of furniture in our house. So I was driving around like in a motorcade, pretending like, so I didn't know. Wow. I didn't know that reality that I was creating on the carpet in our small little apartment on the South Side of Chicago, of me being in D.C., not necessarily as the president, but protecting and around the president, would manifest itself, some 30, 40 years later, with me actually having an office on Pennsylvania Avenue, being across the street from the White House, and being engaged in and around the very policy that I thought as a kid. But it was shaped in an environment where you would not necessarily make that conclusion, where that necessarily probably was a dream or reality or vision that not a lot of my peers had, but it molded me. So early on, what may have been perceived outside as a setback actually set me up to do everything that I'm doing today.
You know, when we first met, I mean, you know, there's a difference. You from Southside Chicago,
Yeah.
You know. I'm from Sherman, Texas. That's a big difference.
I mean, I'm sure Sherman has a hood somewhere.
No, sir. You know, you guys wasn't want to say they from it, but there's not. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of distance. But in growing up, again, as you said, there's so many different things that shape who you are.
Absolutely.
And the way that you think. Was there one moment where one relationship, one conversation, man, that you thought, man, that was major in, you know, and kind of, as I look back now, you know.
I've had a lot. Yeah. I've been blessed to have a lot of moments. I'll tell you what, and, you know, I know people who are listening who do know me are probably tired of hearing me talk about this, but for those of you who don't know me, you know, before there was a first Black president of the United States, for those of us in Chicago especially, there was a man who was the first Black mayor, and his name was Harold Washington. And you would have thought, literally, that Jesus like came down to Chicago and like that. He was the epitome of charisma, intellect. He had a vocabulary out of this world, and he was not scared. And to see that man, that made me, and then I had already had some level of attraction and connectivity to politics and being in Chicago. Harold Washington was very key and critical. So one day, I'm walking down the street in a neighboring community of mine in Woodlawn called High Park. High Park is where the University of Chicago is, and it's a very diverse, but, you know, academic environment, but it borders my neighborhood. I'm walking with my mom. I was 12 years old, I believe. Walking down the street with my mom, and I said, "Ma, the mayor is about to come out." And she's looking at me like I'm crazy. She's like, I said, "Ma, the mayor's about to come down." And I just immediately pulled away from her, and it was a car. And so these were the days, you know, Dr. Sloan, you know, the police and Secret Service, they've got the nice slick earphones now. This is back in the day where they were like big, right? So I see this guy sitting in a car in front of this building, and I knock on the window. I said, "Excuse me, sir." And he rolls down the window, and he says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Sir, can you tell the mayor that I'm down here and I would like to talk to him?" And this guy radios up. Now, he radios up. The mayor comes down, and to this day, I still have the signature where the mayor. I mention that because, you know, there's an old Take Six song that is also a major song in the Black church tradition called "There's Something Within Me," it says, "that I cannot explain. All I know is that I thank God for whatever that something is. I cannot explain to you nor anyone listening how I knew that car with that gentleman, unmarked car with that gentleman, as I'm walking down the street for the first time, recognizing, acknowledging that the mayor was in that building." And don't even begin to ask me the confidence that pre-Morehouse, you know, we emerged Morehouse as confident, but pre-Morehouse to pull away from my mother, go knock on the window, and not just say, "Is the mayor here?" No, call up and tell the mayor, "I'm down here and I want to say hello to him." Some things, my brother, we have to examine and nurture about who we are. But there's some elements of our resilient and confident nature that we have to tap into because it already exists.
You know, it's amazing that there are these moments, I really believe, you know, that are set up in life that can be trajectory changers. And when we understand the power of our voice and exercise the confidence and the courage it takes to make those kind of decisions. I mean, that one little knock seems insignificant to some, but it was. I mean, it really is descriptive, man, of a lot of what moves you.
It is.
In this day and age.
It is. It is. We all are shaped by, if I were to press you a bit more about what it was like growing up in Sherman, there's a line from your childhood to what you do and how you do it today. It may not necessarily be a straight line, but there are some things that you can pull on, and I submit to those who are listening to us, everyone thinks, Dr. Sloan, that when God speaks, like the earth has to start shaking and this celestial choir has to start singing and clouds have to separate. No, I think that if we are paying attention, God gives us confirmation every single day that you are in the right place at the right time, doing exactly what you've been called to do. I think most folks just need to wake up and just discover and figure out what that is and be attuned and open.
Yeah. I've talked about this just recently. It's this whole Elijah piece where it wasn't this loud, trembling trombone voice of God.
Yes.
It was the whisper. Yes. And why whisper? Because it means that you're close. And you can hear God. And I think that oftentimes, we kind of make an assumption that there's got to be all these different things happening around us in order for us to have access to something that's going to be life-changing. But in reality, it's sometimes the quiet moments that God can shift some things for you that change if you're open and listening.
And quiet and perhaps even silent. I think, you preach every Sunday. But I think the greatest sermons you preach are when you don't open up your mouth.
Yeah. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. Again, we talked about how, you think you always got to fill the moment with words when you don't. Of course, Howard Thurman was, a great mystic, talked a lot about this. And, but oftentimes I think sometimes we do have to learn how to be still a little bit.
Indeed.
When you look at leaders today, and again, we look at your journey, and they want profit, but they're trying to blend profit with purpose. And somewhere along the line, there's these mistakes that they make. Are there any common mistakes that you see that are being made when people are trying to, blend profit with purpose, and they kind of stumble in the process?
I think the mistake that is made often is that people don't see the connectedness between purpose and profit, the potential in doing good and making money, and that they don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can do both. The best brands and leaders that I work with understand that it's just as important for us to have customers as it is to being a good citizen in the communities where we serve. That you can't have one without the other. And I've tried to be a bridge between those institutions and entities in and of our community to those folks who, have for-profit objectives and goals. And I think, I found that when we can have common ground, when one understands the other and one understands that both goals can be accomplished together simultaneously, you can do good in the communities where you have an energy grid. You can do good in the same communities that you're trying to lay fiber and do broadband. You can also make money too. And I think that's the opportunity, and I think that's what a lot of folks miss.
You think a lot of people get lost chasing financial success and maybe not realize that if you chase purpose, if you pursue purpose, that the financial success will find you in that.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other. I think there's a certain emptiness, a certain void that a life and a pursuit like that can lead. The best business leaders, the best entrepreneurs I know are those who are trying to build and grow business, but are working just as fervently, Dr. Sloan, to give back, to lean in, to build communities, to build individuals, to pour into. That you just can't go on one pursuit. And, maybe some folks in some communities, Dr. W.B. Du Bois talked about the double consciousness of the Negro at the time. And we do have a double consciousness. We talked about it. I on one hand, have to be able to go to the White House and to Wall Street. But at the same time, I've got to be able to go to 66 and Cottage Grove and Chicago and to Crenshaw and to Harlem. And not all communities have that double consciousness where they have to be able to dwell. Some folks can survive in just one world.
Yeah.
We're called, whether we like it or not, right or wrong, we have to dwell in both. I see that as a remarkable opportunity. I think that's our secret sauce, that I could bring all of Morehouse and all of Princeton right to the folks, and then take all of the stuff from Cottage Grove and Crenshaw to the White House and to Wall Street. They can't do that, right? We can. I think that's a blessing, not a burden.
Yeah, walking with kings and not lose that common touch. You've coached leaders, across so many different sectors. And if you're listening, lean in real closely. I'm about to ask the question that you need to ask Dr. Morris. He's about to tell you something real big here. But with all these leaders that you've coached across different sectors, there's always that something that separates them, there's that mindset that you pick up on that you can pretty much see thematically in leaders who've made major impact. We've got a society now where we promote ourselves and we can kind of try and create narratives of impact. But when you look behind the curtains, it's not necessarily what you think. But for you've seen them. What is that one mindset that you've kind of seen?
Yeah, the habit that I talk about in The Power to Persist in the book, that goes directly to your question, that is a through line that I see in leaders, whether it's Reverend Jesse Jackson to David Kohler, who's a friend who leads Kohler companies, whether it's athletes I've worked with at the highest level or public servants, right? Like a Rodney Ellis. It's this work ethic. There's no substitute for it. The folks that I work with and that I counsel, they are up working when other people are sleeping. When the team and the staff goes home, that's when they begin the second and third phases of their work.
Say it again for the people in the back. Yeah.
I talk to most of my clients and business leaders before 8 a.m. Eastern time. These folks have been up for 3 and 4 hours planning and strategizing their days. I think if there's, in this era where young people and all of us can click and hit and have immediate access and gratification to so many things, this dynamic of a solid work ethic has, I think, been lost.
Again, it's that whole instant gratification, want things immediately. But I think that is so true that, and this is not that kind of grinded out kind of thing. You got to always keep grinding. I think that there is a space for balance.
Absolutely.
Learn how to balance. But when you're focused, you can get the right rest you need, but then also know how to work effectively.
Absolutely.
And I think that there is so much to be said about work ethic.
Work ethic.
Today and generationally, maybe.
And generationally.
Yeah.
I think another another through line as I think about these leaders, female and male, all across the board. There's this dogged determination. It's one of the habits that I talk about on this path to becoming resilient. There's just this never die, never give up, never be denied, never stop, continued determination. And it's an interesting concept. I talked to you a while ago about the time I just spent with some of the young brothers at Morehouse, our alma mater. And you know this, we're taught that there's a crown above our head that we're constantly trying to grow tall enough to wear. And, you know, you can always tell a Morehouse man, you just can't tell him much, right? But in this pursuit of determination and confidence on the borderline of arrogance, but a confidence that you won't be denied. I believe it was Benjamin Mays, Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, who talked about this distance between the head and the heart. Mm-hmm. So that I'm not going to step all over Dr. Sloan in my quests. As a matter of fact, I'm called to make sure I'm trying to help and pull Dr. Sloan along with me as I go, but recognizing everyone may not. I told the brothers this a couple of weeks ago, everyone may not, this place may not, you know, when we arrived in Morehouse, you know, it was a shock to some brothers. It was 2,500 other Tim Sloans. Yeah, sure. And that either is the kind of thing that makes or breaks you. You know, you're either going to like, oh man, let me get on top of my stuff and because I need to compete, or you shrink. Now we're going to do our best to try to pull you and keep you here with us, but it may not be the institution for you. And I submit that we all need a little bit of, you know, confidence and determination in us. It should not be at the expense or in spite of our sister or brother. We should be bringing them along, but a healthy dose of, you know, determination and confidence is a good thing.
Not everybody wants to go, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But is there something in you that we haven't talked about yet that man really kind of just pushes Lamell McMorris to get you up every single day?
Yeah, you know, number one, everyone asks me, you know, man, do you drink coffee? And I'm like, nah, I don't drink. I'm not a coffee. I'm so, you know, literally, I feel I really take the notion of order steps very seriously as relates to my life. I just don't think I'm as smart and I could have figured out and mapped out this stuff, how it's happened. So Dr. Sloan, what I do every day is to get out of God's way and just wake up and try to just, you know, don't get in the way. Because clearly there is something that's being worked out, shaped up, fixed up, mapped out, strategized. And my job, as I understand it, is to just make it happen. Mm-hmm. Don't get in the way of it. Mm-hmm. How in the world could I have predicted when I decided in 2002 that I was going to start a firm in Washington, D.C., put my office at the Willard offices, which just happened to be, after I did a search, the place where the term lobbyist started. But being from Chicago, how did I know that a guy that I met as a high school student doing voter registration education not only would become a U.S. senator down the street at the Capitol, but would end up at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue as the president, and my office is at Fort. There is no business plan where I could have told you that I was going. There's nothing. So at some point, I think the challenge and the opportunity I want to leave to your listeners is, yes, we must work. Yes, we must plan. Yes, we must strategize. Yes, we need to be as prepared as possible. But at the same time, you've got to be open and leave room for the Spirit to move and be moved by the Spirit. And when the door opens and the opportunity comes, be ready. Yeah. Be ready.
Well, you've written this great book, Power to Persist.
Yes.
What's the one thing you hope, you know, readers get out of it? You know, when you pick it up, put it down, what is the one thing, man, I need you to walk away with this?
One, that this is a journey that we all need to go on together. I'm trying to actually launch a resilient movement, not just for Dr. Sloan and Lamell, but for our families, our communities, and even the organizations and businesses that we work in. That there is an opportunity and a pathway for all of us to become more resilient. That we're not broken. We may bend, but we never break. We always keep going forward. In the book, I start out with the first habit that I share is attitude. The last one that I share is around faith. On one hand, when people hear this word faith, it's like this religious term thrown out there. You and I and folks like us, we define faith as the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. I submit, Dr. Sloan, when you and I come to the realization that we are the substance of things hoped for and we are the evidence of things not seen, that mindset, that attitude that this isn't some far away, thought or theory. You are living faith, living, walking, breathing. That is a mindset and an attitude that propels us forward and puts us on the path to being more resilient.
Wow. Listen, I really hope that is such an important word that I hope we really bring back to the forefront of conversations, resilience. And we begin to talk more and more about it, man. Yeah. So thank you for the push.
Thank you.
And talking about resilience and helping us understand how important that is.
Thank you.
Well, listen, tell us how we can find you, man. And don't start with www.
Yeah, well.
Inside.
Listen, The Power to Persist, the book can be found everywhere where books are sold, just like the Power to Persist podcast can be found everywhere you view your podcasts. And yes, go on this journey with us. Let's persist together at lamellmcmorris.com. lamellmcmorris.com. Look forward to you joining us.
That's www. Lamell McMorris. Man, listen, again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It means the world to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bro.
And grateful for our journey together.
Yes, sir.
Love you dearly, man.
Just love you, too. We're just getting started.
Just getting started.
Yes, sir.
Let's do it. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate you for joining us today. Grateful to have you sharing with us. Don't forget to tell your friends about it. And don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Till next time, keep standing.